Hello, thank you for tuning into this video, or at least previewing it before possibly clicking to another video. Not to waste any time, you've seen the prompt. This video is looking at cars that looked good until the successor came out, and then they started to kind of look not so good. Pretty simple. You may think, yeah, fucking idiot, that's all cars. Not the case. I got two cars at the end that I want to look at that's kind of the opposite of that. They kind of look good throughout the generations. And two, before we get into the first car, which this might be a spoiler, but before we get into the first car, each car or each entry is going to get a rating 1 to 5 stars on how good I think it answered the prompt of the video. So without further ado, let's look at the first car, that being the Porsche Panamera. Now this car, I thought it was the best, example of this, because when I thought about this prompt, this is the first car that came into my head. But I kind of like making these videos because when I look back and start really looking at these cars, I kind of start like seeing more than I do when I just see them out in the street. Because looking back at this, like this rear end is the part that I kind of think like makes it look outdated as compared to the new version, which kind of modernized the tail lights and made it in line with the rest of the Porsche lineup, and kind of the big tail lights kind of makes it look old. But I think this big like rounded back end, I was gonna pause that, but I don't need to pause that. I think it makes it look more unique still. Kind of reminds me of the car from World Race. I don't know what age you are, if you identify with that Hot Wheels World Race, but I'll pop a picture in there. But yeah, I think this still looks good actually. But if we look at this, looking at the tail lights and kind of how they kind of chiseled it up in a way and kind of reduced how round it is, I think that just made it more modern, and then obviously brought it in line with the rest of the Porsches. I think it just made it look a whole lot better. Like I said, the old one still kind of looks good, but if I was to want to get a Panamera, which is kind of like my barometer on how good the car still is, like how far back would I go, and if I was to want to get one, I wouldn't go back to this generation of when they look like this. It would have to look like this with this tail light and the updated headlights. But I still think this, I get it 4 stars in terms of how good I think it answers the prompt. Then you got the side by side where you can kind of see that this is definitely like completely more rounded than this. But I don't want to be all day. Second car, try to mix it up a little bit. It's Bugatti Veyron, and this car I don't think it really looked that great when it came out, but it was more about how it performed, which kind of made it look great, But the one weird thing I think about this is like this part right here, this like completely vertical line that they just put right here, and obviously they had to because they got the big ass engine in the back. But I don't know what they could have did, because anything like this probably would look weird, but it definitely looks weird as it is. But because I think you probably want more lines like this, like long horizontal flowing lines, which kind of gives the car a sense of direction and like movement, versus this is like you're building a house. Like this line right here I think helps, and then kind of swoops in to another line. Like you want horizontal lines, you don't want fat ass vertical line right here. But this car, it kind of it looks a bit more outdated now, when obviously this video is not that suspenseful because you probably know what the successor is, the Chiron or the Chiron, however you want to say it. This just took everything that made this cool and pretty much modernized it and made it more chiseled. Like they got this crease right here, crease on the hood, crease in the middle. This part right here too I think is pretty cool, because they kind of took this smaller part here, which wasn't like a main feature of the car, and then made it into a main feature of the car, which is unique and looks good. I like too how Bugatti keeps the two-tone going in their cars, even though I think that shit ugly. I think it's always cool to see a car or a brand stick to their identity, and then like keep it going, even though they trying to get into the modern ages and shit. I think it looks good. This car looks great. I think too they took this car, which was more luxury first, I feel like, and the front was more casual, and made it like 10 times more aggressive in the front, which I think looks good. This side by side, there you go. Next is the Mustang. Now if you're probably slightly older than me, when this car came out, you was probably like, damn, this is the shit. And it probably was the shit. Cause like this is when it came, like this body style still pretty much exists today. Like new Mustangs still using the same body style, just modernized. So like, you notice the shit, cause it's 20 years ago, and Mustangs still, in a way, still look like this. But I think this one, compared to this one, like this one just took this car, like, I'm gonna skip right to the side by side. If you look at the older one and look at these both as though they were faces of people, this looks like somebody with like big wide lips. It's like almost like a Bob's Burgers character, like just an ugly motherfucker. Like this look like if it was a person that sound like but this one is like this, but just a whole lot tighter. And like front, back, side, every angle I think of this car looks a lot better than this. And I'm realizing that I forgot to rate this one. This I would say, I think I get this 5 stars. This one also is a 5-star for me. Obviously I'm biased because I made the list, but I think this is one of my better entries. So moving into the next one, we got a truck. Try to mix it up. The main thing as to why I think the Ranger, the new one looks so much better, is because I don't think any truck should be like rounded like that. Like that's why I know that the Ram trucks are cool or whatever, but the design I don't think is what a truck should be, because they're a bit too rounded for me. Whereas I think the F-150 Raptor, which is another truck that I was gonna put on this list, but I thought the Ranger would kind of suffice for both of them. I think the new F-150 Raptor is probably the best looking truck out, just because it's boxed off so perfectly with like just the smallest bit of being rounded. Like obviously you don't want a complete 90-degree angle on like the front of your car. Like you don't want this to be like a 90-degree angle, like that would be hideous. So it still has that round element to make it look, you know, smooth and modern while still being boxed off. I just think it looks good. But for this one, seeing that the car is actually in the video, I think this is the main thing that I didn't really like about the Ranger when it came out. But again, similar to the Porsche, looking back at this, I'm like, this actually doesn't look bad. And like I said, in terms of how far back I would go if I was to go and buy a Ranger, if I can get this for a good price, I'd probably take this. But I would be missing the fact that I don't have a new one. This one too, I wanted to just include this picture because I was like, damn, this truck is still cool, because looking at this like overlanding like version of the truck, I'm like, this still is cool as fuck. But I'm like, this though, if this is cool as fuck, this is like, you know what I'm saying, this is crazy. And I think the whole purpose of this video is by comparison. By comparison, this doesn't look as good as this. That's just simple. This one look like it might be more capable based on the ground clearance, but this one just looks better. And I think, like I said, just in terms of bringing it more in line with the F-150, now this looks more like a baby F-150. And I think this is one of the coolest trucks out, because I think you don't need a full-size truck in most day-to-day life. I definitely don't. So if I was to get a truck, I think a Ranger Raptor would be crazy. But this is another picture of a more, you know, regular looking Raptor, which I think, again, a truck should be boxy. To a certain extent, it should be boxy. And I think making this truck more boxy makes it look a lot bigger. I'm sure it is probably bigger, slightly bigger than the old one, but it makes it look bigger. It makes it look tougher, you know, more rugged, all those buzzwords. I think this looks good. This is the shit. This is the shit a little bit, but this is really the shit right here. So I gotta get this one a 5-star. Even though, despite saying I still think this one looks a bit good, I still gotta get this a 5-star, just because this right here, I'd take this, but I'd be embarrassed every time somebody drive up in one of these. So next, this side by side. Next, this right here. If you around my age or slightly older and played Midnight Club, or just alive during this time, I feel like you probably know this right here was the shit for real. Like if you had one of these, it's like you up. It was like a fake Bentley. So it's like you're not in a Bentley, like you in the poor man's Bentley, which is still something, you know. But I think this was when I was a child, this is my favorite car. I was like, I'm gonna have me a Chrysler 300C, which was like low-key crazy, but this is my shit right here. But what I think is interesting about this one is, despite it being in this video, meaning that the successor made it look like shit, this car, I think, ironically, was more of an icon, at least in my life. it was like, yeah, this car had status and it's like an icon. It kind of go down, even if it's a small spot in history. But it seemed like, at least in my life, this car, the successor to it, despite looking so much better, and then people putting like the Hellcat engines in them and like the V8s and all types of shit, I feel like they didn't get as much notoriety as the original, even though it looks like 10 times better from every angle. But let's talk about the design. They kind of similar to a few other cars. They just took this, modernized it by adding more, you know, crease right here, right here. They took this line, which kind of already exists here very faintly, and just like made it a lot more prominent here. Which, and then too, like this example here with the blacked out trim is pretty nice. But I don't think I would take one of these when somebody was trying to sell it to me, despite my high praises. But I think I would give this, I gotta give this 5 stars. You might disagree, but shit, it is what it is. Next one is, I don't even know, oh, Corvette. If any of these people watching my video, any of my 16 subscribers, you would know how I feel about the C5 versus C6. The C5, I think, is the epitome of this video versus the C5 versus the C6. So this is, before I forget, this is the 5-star right here, because I think this car definitely looked good when it came out, and it still looks good, obviously. Like, I'm not God, I can't tell you what looks good when that doesn't look good. But as compared to this one, I think this is like, in history, one of the best versions of taking something, which is this, keeping what made it great and then just making it better without losing anything. Like, I feel like everything from this car to this car was an addition. Like, it didn't lose anything that made it great. Where I feel like some cars kind of do that. Like, you take one step forward, take 2 steps back, and you gotta give something up to gain something. But in this situation, I think it's just all good. My favorite car right here. Let's just take a second. All right, next pictures. The G-Wagon. Not a fan of the G-Wagon. Not a fan of the new one either. But I can see a little something in the new one, and it's hard to put a finger on it. But I think, ironically, whereas the other cars kind of made stuff more boxy and more chiseled, I think what makes the new G-Wagon look a little better is that I feel like it seems like it's more rounded in the front now than the old one. Like, looking at the bumper like this, it's more rounded here. Like, this is just like super chiseled here, and then around the headlights too, whereas this one I feel like it's a little more smoother, and I think that just made it look better for some reason, at least in my opinion. But for this one, based on the fact that I can't really put a finger on it, maybe I give it 4 stars. But you got the side by side, and then the next one is this Cadillac. This one, it was kind of just like a shoe-in. Well, not a shoe-in, but the opposite of a shoe-in. Like, I just threw this one in because looking at it, I don't even know if this looked good when it came out, honestly, but I feel like it did, at least in the front. I think the rear is what makes this car look so weird, because I don't even know what was going on here. Like, I don't even know what type of car this is. Like, I guess it's a coupe, but like the back makes it feel like it should be like a whole different type of car, and I think it just looked ridiculous. I don't even get a picture of the back because I don't even need to see that, but we're just gonna include it anyway because the front definitely looks good. And I think what makes this car look weird is just the proportions. I feel like all the graphic features were there, and I think that's why when they took all these graphic features, in a sense, and put them on a car with proper proportions, then it looks good. And I think this car looks so good just because it's like so plain Jane, like straight to basics. Like, this just looks good. The only thing I think looks weird about it is how they made the headlight kind of go through the body panel. I think it's cool because it's different, and it's like you don't really see that anywhere, but I think it looks a bit weird. But this one, just because this is so random and the first one looked kind of ugly anyway, I'll give it 3 stars. But I think we will be getting into, yes, these are my 2 examples of cars that did the opposite. First, Porsche. You maybe could have assumed that it may be a Porsche because obviously Porsche design don't really change much, and I think that's what kind of allows it to kind of grow and kind of be so timeless in a way. So this is the first generation I decided to go with. Despite the runny egg headlights, everybody had a problem with it. The headlights don't even look bad. Even with the headlights, this still looks like a good car. And if somebody was to try to sell you this car for the right number, you'd buy it. And then you'd buy this too. And you'd still buy the old one. Then you'd buy this too. And you'd still buy the old one. And then you'd buy this too. And then you'd buy the new one. You pretty much, every car along the lineage of Porsche, even going all the way back. But just in terms of the 2000s, all those cars, the 911s, look good. And the new one coming out didn't make the old one look bad. Like, you can go back anywhere in the 2000s and buy a 911, they all gonna look good. The other example is the BMW M3. This is a nice ass car. If I could buy this without paying way more than I should, I would buy it. But sticking to the script, looking at this one, it looks good, right? The next one, completely different body style, but this one still looks good. And I think this one is kind of easy because this car looks completely different, so it doesn't really have any impact on making the other one look old, because it kind of so disassociated with each other to where the other one doesn't really be impacted, if that makes sense. This one, I don't even think this is an M3. I think this is just a 3 Series, but it got in here somehow. I don't know who put this in there. I need to talk to my staff. But this one looks good. Obviously, doesn't make this one look bad. And then keep going to the current one, the controversial one with the long nose, nostrils or whatever. This I think looks good too, and I think it looked good when it came out. But obviously, especially if you think this one looks ugly, then it definitely wouldn't make the other one look bad. But that's all I got. If you like the video, like it. Please leave some comments. Speaking of comments, that's what I had. If you get the preview, this is a comment from my last video. He said he ain't like my voice. You can tell him to suck my dick. But no, I like comments. They funny. So if you got something to say it. If you think any other cars that should have been on the list, let me know. If you disagree, anything, let me know. Shout out to my 16 subscribers. And other than that, be smooth, be safe. Don't do no dumb shit. And yeah, if you want to join the 16 subscribers, feel free. Stay smooth.